My father was the one who helped us to make the music, so he was here with us. He's the one who wrote our first song. It was in 1979, a song called Children Playing in the Streets.
In a moment that stunned fans worldwide, Ziggy Marley revealed something no one saw coming. He rarely shares much about his father. People ask him about Bob Marley all the time, but he often chooses silence. This time, he did not, and what he said shocked even those closest to the Marley legacy. Stay tuned as we reveal the truth Ziggy Marley had to say about his father. Ziggy Marley's early life with Bob. Ziggy Marley was born David Nesta Marley in the year 1968 in Kingston, Jamaica. He was the eldest son of Bob Marley and Rita Marley. His birth coincided with the rise of reggae music, and Bob Marley was becoming one of Jamaica's most recognized faces. Ziggy was named after David Bowie, whose nickname was Ziggy. His parents lived a complicated life under constant public and political attention. Ziggy was raised in a household where music was central. His father, Bob Marley, practiced and recorded music constantly, while his mother, Rita, managed both music and family matters. Ziggy and his siblings often watched rehearsals and recording sessions. The Marley home was always active, with band members, friends, and visitors moving in and out. Music was not just work, it was part of their daily routine. Ziggy was enrolled in local schools in Kingston, where he was known to be quiet and observant. His upbringing, while influenced by fame, was humble. Bob Marley was often away, touring or recording. Despite his absence, Bob played a central role in shaping Ziggy's early worldview. Ziggy later said that even though Bob was not always there, his presence was still deeply felt. The relationship between Ziggy and his father was not typical. Bob Marley was already a global icon by the time Ziggy was old enough to understand fame. Their time together was limited, but significant. Bob sometimes brought Ziggy to rehearsals or public events. Ziggy watched his father lead the Wailers and address large crowds. These moments were brief, but they had lasting effects. During his early childhood, Ziggy began learning instruments. Bob Marley encouraged this. Ziggy learned to play the guitar, drums, and keyboard. Music was taught at home. There was no pressure, only encouragement. Bob did not force his son into music. Ziggy found an interest in music naturally. He listened, observed, and slowly began developing a sense of rhythm and harmony. By the mid-1970s, political tensions in Jamaica were high. Bob Marley, seen as a unifying figure, was pulled into the center of the political divide. He was planning to perform at the Smile Jamaica concert, which was aimed at calming the growing unrest. Just days before the concert, an armed attack was carried out on Bob Marley's home. On the night of the attack in December of 1976, armed men entered the Marley residence. Bob and Rita were both shot. Bob was hit in the arm and chest. Rita was shot in the head. Aston Barrett, the band's bassist, was also injured. Ziggy was not present during the attack. Police moved Ziggy and his siblings to a safe location that night. Ziggy later described the experience as confusing. At the time, he was 8 years old. He did not fully understand what had happened, only that his family was in danger. The police came suddenly, removed the children, and kept them in hiding. It was not until later that Ziggy learned the full extent of the attack. His mother's survival left a strong impression on him. Despite her injury, Rita performed with Bob at the Smile Jamaica concert 2 days after the shooting. Following the attack, security around the Marley family tightened. Ziggy's daily routine changed. There was more caution, more protection. The incident marked a shift in their household. It was no longer just about music and family, it was also about survival. Ziggy was aware of the public attention on his family, but now he understood the dangers that came with it. Despite the instability, Ziggy continued his education. He also remained close to music. Bob sometimes spoke to Ziggy about purpose and responsibility. These conversations were short but meaningful. Bob emphasized the importance of telling the truth and standing firm. He believed music could change minds. Ziggy listened carefully, storing those lessons. In his early teenage years, Ziggy began performing more actively. He played with his siblings under the name the Melody Makers. Bob supported their efforts. He watched their rehearsals and offered feedback. By this time, Bob's health was beginning to decline, though it was not yet public knowledge. Bob Marley died in 1981. Ziggy was 13 years old. His father's death had a profound impact on the family. Ziggy became more focused on carrying forward the musical message. The years that followed were marked by learning, discipline, and a deepening understanding of what his father had built. Ziggy took on a leadership role within the Melody Makers. He helped write songs, develop melodies, and shape the band's image. The group began gaining attention, both in Jamaica and internationally. Ziggy's voice, similar in tone to Bob's, drew comparisons. He did not try to imitate his father. He focused on creating his own space in the music world. Through the 1980s and early 1990s, Ziggy led the Melody Makers through several albums. He also began exploring solo projects. His lyrics often touched on unity, justice, and human rights. Much of this influence came from his early exposure to his father's work. Ziggy also continued to speak about social issues, following the example Bob had set. Over time, Ziggy became one of the leading voices in reggae music. He also became a spokesman for the Marley legacy. Interviews, tributes, and public events often placed Ziggy at the center. He always spoke cautiously, never revealing too much about family matters. For decades, he maintained a careful distance between the public image of Bob Marley and the secrets he carried. Ziggy has since spoken more openly about his father. In recent years, he has acknowledged that there were things about Bob Marley's life that were never fully understood by the public. He has not gone into detail, but he has hinted that the truth is far more complex than what fans know. These comments have raised interest, prompting questions about what Ziggy might eventually reveal. Ziggy Marley's early life was shaped by music, danger, and legacy. Today, Ziggy continues to make music and speak publicly about justice, family, and culture. His role in preserving Bob Marley's legacy remains strong, yet there are signs that Ziggy might soon say more than he ever has before. The story of Bob Marley is well known. However, the story Ziggy holds may be very different. That truth has not yet been told. Ziggy, Rita, and Bob. Complicated relationship. Ziggy was raised in a home where music, Rastafarian faith, and family were always present. Yet, even from a young age, he witnessed things that would shape the way he viewed his father, not only as a musician, but as a man. Rita Marley was more than just a mother and wife. She was a member of the I3, Bob's backing vocal group, and a partner in building the Marley name. She was there during the struggles and the fame. She lived through the chaos and survived things most would not. She raised Ziggy with the teachings of Rastafari, and she kept the home together while Bob was often away on tour or in the studio. Bob Marley fathered many children with different women. Some reports say he had 11 children officially recognized, though others believe the number is higher. While Ziggy remained the firstborn son in his home, he grew up learning to share his father with many others. Rita accepted some of these children and raised them alongside her own. This created a complex web of sibling relationships, emotional tension, and shifting loyalties. Ziggy had to grow up with the knowledge that the world admired his father, yet he was sometimes absent at home. While Bob was not known to mistreat his children, his time was often consumed by his music, tours, and commitments. Ziggy has spoken about how he admired his father deeply, but also learned many lessons by observing both his strengths and his flaws. Rita, on the other hand, was a constant presence. She was firm, nurturing, and protective. She kept the family grounded, especially during moments when Bob's lifestyle brought stress into the home. Ziggy has acknowledged in interviews that Rita carried a lot of weight, emotionally and physically, during the years of Bob's success. After Bob Marley's death in the year 1981, things became even more complicated. He did not leave behind a formal will. This created major legal issues across Jamaica, the United States, and other regions where his music had generated income. Since Bob died intestate, meaning without a legal will, the government and court system had to get involved. Ziggy was only 13 years old when his father passed. At that age, he did not yet understand the depth of what would come next. The Marley estate, which included royalties, publishing rights, physical properties, and other investments, became the subject of court battles that would last for many years. The Jamaican government froze the estate for a time. Executors were appointed. Lawyers were brought in. It was no longer just a family matter. Rita was among those who tried to manage the estate and keep control over Bob's legacy. However, other mothers of Bob's children also had legal rights, and some challenged the decisions made by Rita and the estate administrators. Over time, even some of Bob's children found themselves at odds over how the estate was being handled. Ziggy, being the eldest son and a musician himself, naturally became a public figure expected to represent his father's legacy. That pressure carried weight. He had to navigate loyalty to his mother, respect for his siblings, and the reality that Bob had not made his wishes known in writing. There were moments of unity among the Marley children, especially in the early years after Bob's passing. They recorded music together and tried to honor his message, but behind the scenes, legal disputes continued. Disagreements over music rights, merchandising deals, and the use of Bob Marley's image became frequent. Some siblings believed decisions were being made without proper consultation. Ziggy has mostly remained quiet about the legal conflicts. He has often said that what matters most is the music and the message their father left behind. Still, he has occasionally admitted that the tensions were real and painful. Rita remained the matriarch through it all. She continued to advocate for her husband's message and maintained a public face of dignity. Yet the weight of managing a global icon's legacy while protecting her children and her financial interests was not easy. Rita was accused in some court filings of trying to forge documents to claim Bob's estate. That allegation, though never proven in a full court, became public knowledge and caused embarrassment to the family. The Marley estate was eventually put under the control of a court-appointed administrator in Jamaica. Royalties and intellectual property were distributed based on Jamaican inheritance law. Over time, many disputes were settled, either in court or behind closed doors. Yet the emotional scars from the battles remained. For Ziggy, this meant walking a line between family loyalty and professional responsibility. He had to decide when to speak and when to remain silent. He became the face of the Marley name for a new generation, not only through his music, but through foundations, interviews, and public work. He honored his father's legacy by continuing the musical message of unity and justice, while also creating his sound. Ziggy has described his mother, Rita, as the foundation that held everything together during those years. He has spoken about her strength, her faith, and her unshakable belief in Bob's purpose. At the same time, he has also pointed out that the world only sees the legend, while the family sees the man, and the man is complicated. Ziggy's relationship with his siblings varies. Some have been close allies, while others have taken different paths. Damien, Stephen, Sadella, and others have followed the music path. Some of the children born outside of Rita's marriage have had less public relationships with Ziggy. The complexity of Bob's personal life created problems that no amount of money or legacy could resolve. Over the decades, the Marley name became a brand. From t-shirts to coffee to music licensing, it now generates millions each year. Ziggy has remained one of the key figures in making sure that the Marley brand remains tied to social justice and positivity. He has spoken about not wanting the message to be lost in commercial deals. Yet even with that, some fans and critics feel that Bob Marley's image is now more of a business than a movement. In interviews, Ziggy rarely discusses the estate battles or personal disputes in detail. He tends to shift the focus back to the music, the message, and his journey. Still, the experience of watching his family fight over their father's legacy shaped him profoundly. It made him cautious, focused, and determined to build something sustainable without destroying the relationships around him. Rita's health in recent years has declined. She suffered a stroke and has since stepped away from public life. Ziggy often speaks about her with love and respect. He acknowledges her role in shaping him, not just as a musician, but as a man. He frequently credits her with teaching him patience, responsibility, and the value of truth. As time passes, the Marley legacy continues to evolve. Bob is no longer just a man or a musician. He is a symbol. He is a story that belongs not only to the family, but to the world. Ziggy understands this burden better than anyone. And yet, behind the music and the public message, Ziggy holds certain secrets about his father that the world has never heard. Ziggy Marley's shocking revelation. Ziggy Marley has finally shared the truth about his father's life during interviews conducted around the release of Bob Marley's One Love and in earlier profiles. He addressed 4 core themes: his father's violent tendencies, the political motives behind the shooting incident in 1976, Bob's biracial heritage and family life, and his expectations regarding the artistic portrayal of Bob's story. These revelations come from confirmed interviews with The Telegraph and appearances during the promotional tour of the biopic. Ziggy has noted that Bob Marley maintained a reputation as a fighter in his youth. He grew up in a rough environment in Kingston, where disputes were often settled physically. Ziggy said that his father was not a pacifist in private life. He could become aggressive when provoked or threatened, but he deeply respected women, Ziggy said, and he also defended himself and his community. Bob's physical presence and readiness to stand up for himself and others shaped how people saw him in Jamaica before his international fame. Those who viewed him only as a peaceful singer missed the absolute truth about his personality. Ziggy has confirmed that Bob's violent side did not contradict his message of peace, but it was proof that he was a strong fighter for what he believed in. He described an incident in which Bob confronted people who disrespected his family, and Bob did not back down. Ziggy said he faced them directly and made sure his message was passed across. In December 1976, Bob Marley was attacked at his home in Kingston, Jamaica. Gunmen entered the residence and opened fire. Rita Marley was shot in the head. Bob Marley was shot in the arm and chest. They survived. 2 days later, Bob performed at the Smile Jamaica concert as scheduled. Ziggy later explained that the context of the attack was political. The concert was organized shortly after a national election. Some political leaders saw Bob's influence on people as a threat. His support among young people, his working-class roots, and his international connections made him an influential public figure. In the political climate of the time, marked by Cold War tensions and local fears of communism, Bob's message was viewed by some as instigating violence.
Oh, let's get together and feel alright. I said, let's get together and...
Ziggy said the attack was not a personal matter, but a calculated act of intimidation. He believed the attackers wanted to see if Bob would still appear on stage after the incident. When Bob did perform, Ziggy viewed it as a direct challenge to the attempt on his life. Bob never publicly named anyone responsible, but within the family, there was a private belief that political operatives were involved. Ziggy also addressed Bob's ethnic background. Bob Marley was the son of Norval Sinclair Marley, a white Jamaican of English descent, and Cedella Booker, a black Jamaican woman. Norval was absent from Bob's life and died before Ziggy was born. Cedella raised Bob alone. Ziggy stated that Bob's mixed heritage set him apart in Jamaica. In white communities, he was seen as black. In black communities, he was seen as white. Ziggy said Bob was often treated as an outsider by both communities, and this affected how he saw the world. Ziggy further added that Bob's lack of a father figure influenced his parenting style. Bob was involved in his children's lives, but sometimes emotionally distant. Ziggy said this was not intentional neglect, but a reflection of Bob's upbringing. He added that Bob's relationship with Rita Marley also reflected these issues. They married after Bob had already fathered children with other women. Rita supported Bob's work and maintained the household. Their relationship was built on values, but sometimes it included tension. Ziggy Marley discussed his views on Bob Marley's life story and the approach behind the film. Bob Marley One Love during a confirmed interview with The Telegraph, and also in interviews tied to the film's release in the Associated Press and other outlets. Ziggy made it clear that the movie was never meant to be a perfect reenactment of his father's life. His main goal was not historical precision, but the truth behind it all. According to what he told The Telegraph, Ziggy explained that some parts of the film were fictionalized for artistic reasons. He described the movie as a creative interpretation that captured his father's personality rather than a scene-by-scene documentary. Ziggy also told the Associated Press that he had been cautious about Hollywood's involvement in telling his father's story. He wanted the story to reflect Jamaican culture, spirituality, and reality. For this reason, he closely supervised the direction of the film. He also played a key role in the casting, music selection, and script development. He emphasized that authenticity was more important than perfection. His goal was for the audience to feel the experience of his father's journey, rather than memorize exact events. Regarding criticism that the film did not cover all parts of Bob Marley's life, Ziggy acknowledged that not everything could be included. He said the family decided to focus on a short, defining period in Bob's life: the years around the Smile Jamaica concert and the making of the Exodus album. From Ziggy's point of view, this moment was the most powerful moment of his father's life. It was the time when he faced threats, exile, and illness, yet chose to continue spreading his message. Ziggy defended this in the interviews, saying that no single film could contain the full weight of the Marley story. When discussing Bob Marley's legacy, Ziggy has always emphasized that the message is more important than anything else. In various interviews, including with Rolling Stone and Billboard, Ziggy has said that his father's true legacy is the impact his music continues to have across the world. He views the songs as living evidence of Bob Marley's strong sense of justice and truth behind his legacy. Ziggy explained that the music is not just entertainment, but a form of activism. Ziggy also acknowledged that carrying his father's legacy comes with heavy responsibility. He said this role is not just about managing the Marley name, but about protecting what it represents. In doing so, he has sometimes had to make difficult decisions about how that story is told. For Ziggy, his father's memory is not just about another musician's biography. It is the story of a man who fought for what he believed, even when his life was at risk. And that sums up the type of man Bob Marley was. Ziggy Marley's life after Bob's death. Ziggy Marley's public life after the death of his father marked a transition from son of a legend to an independent artist, activist, and caretaker of the legacy. Within months of Bob Marley's passing in 1981, Ziggy joined his siblings in forming the Melody Makers. Their first recording, written by Bob himself, was released when Ziggy was 11 years old. That song they recorded was "Children Playing in the Streets." It was meant to raise awareness about children's poverty in Jamaica, with proceeds donated to the United Nations Children's Fund. The Melody Makers began performing publicly in 1981. Ziggy stepped into his father's role in many live performances across Jamaica after the release of Bob's Legend compilation album in 1984. Their early albums, Play the Game Right, was released in 1985, and Hey World, which was also released in 1986, earned critical acclaim but modest sales. Those initial years showed Ziggy's commitment to carrying forward his father's message through music. A turning point occurred in 1988. Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers signed with a major label and released Conscious Party, produced by notable rock figures Chris France and Tina Weymouth. The album won a Grammy Award for Best Reggae Recording and broke into international markets. Ziggy emerged as a lead songwriter and frontman, with a mature voice distinct from his father's. He followed up in 1989 with One Bright Day, earning another Grammy, and continued to release multiple albums during the 1990s and beyond. Ziggy's evolution into a solo artist began after the Melody Makers disbanded in 2002. His solo debut, Dragonfly in 2003, explored musical genres beyond reggae and included collaborations with artists from diverse backgrounds. He released Love Is My Religion in 2006, which earned him a Grammy Award and strengthened his identity as a solo creator. His later albums include Family Time in 2009, geared toward children and featuring family members, followed by Wild and Free, Fly Rasta in 2014, which won another Grammy Award, and Ziggy Marley in 2016, marking his 7th Grammy win in the reggae category. Beyond music, Ziggy expanded into philanthropy, activism, and business. He founded the record label Tough Gong Worldwide in 2006, modeled on his father's label but rebranded to reflect a new vision and global reach. He also co-founded the Ghetto Youth's Crew record label alongside his brothers and sisters to promote music, cultural identity, and support for underprivileged youth. Ziggy remains engaged in environmental causes and social justice. Reports describe his vocal resistance to the privatization of Jamaican lands and beaches, citing his belief that young Jamaicans must retain access to natural resources. His nonprofit work is often grouped with that of his siblings in the Ghetto Youth's Foundation. Ziggy has spoken occasionally about carrying the Marley legacy as a guiding mission rather than just a burden. In exclusive interviews, including one with People, he described receiving his father's last instructions, words he carried from age 12, and how they have shaped his approach to leadership and creativity. That legacy is not only musical, it is spiritual and generational. In 2020, he released More Family Time. This album celebrated themes of unity and family across 8 tracks featuring guest artists and proceeds directed toward his URGE fund, which focuses on children's education and healthcare initiatives. That album demonstrated how Ziggy's life after Bob's death includes a focus on family activity, not only performance. Ziggy's public engagements in recent years include participation in a major collaborative tour with his brothers Stephen, Julian, Kai Mani, and Damien. The tour, their first in 2 decades, featured 30 of their father's songs performed live and reaffirmed the continuity of the Marley message across generations. The tour began in Vancouver and concluded in Miami, emphasizing unity, social justice, and family synergy. A local proclamation in Queens, New York, recognized the event as Marley Brothers Day. Ziggy's leadership extends off stage. He and his family continue to oversee projects related to the Bob Marley Museum, film development, and the cultural brand tied to Bob Marley's image. He has occasionally commented in interviews that being custodian of the Marley estate sometimes requires restraining public sentiment in favor of authenticity and preservation. Ziggy's life after Bob's death demonstrates not only an artistic journey, but a long-term commitment to stewardship of the Marley legacy. He has balanced solo exploration with collaboration across sibling projects, evolving from a child performing in his father's shadow to a recognized global artist, humanitarian, and cultural leader. Ziggy Marley's own family life is calm, private, and quietly different from the chaos that once surrounded his childhood. He is married to Orly Marley, a strong and steady partner who also serves as his manager. Together, they have built a life away from headlines. They are raising 7 children, and Ziggy has made it clear that his priority is not fame, but peace. He rarely speaks about his children in public and avoids using them to promote his music or legacy. This is intentional. He knows what it is like to grow up as a Marley, with all the eyes watching. He chooses a different path for his family. They live in Los Angeles. Ziggy works in the studio, tours when he wants, and returns home to a life of routines. His children are encouraged to explore their own identities, not follow in their father's or grandfather's footsteps unless they choose to. There is no pressure, and Ziggy leads by example, not by force. Ziggy honored his father, but he also protected his own space. He did not involve himself in every family argument, nor did he try to control every detail of the Marley estate. He spoke when necessary and stayed silent when necessary. His impact and hard work towards keeping his father's legacy alive is the greatest act of honor and respect. Ziggy Marley has shown us that it does not always mean repeating it. Sometimes, it means protecting it long after the owner is gone. What do you think of Bob and Ziggy's relationship? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more inspiring content like this. Before you go, kindly watch the other videos on your screen. Thanks for watching.